Let's paint plein air. I asked you for questions about what stops you from painting plein air, and a lot of them weren't about technical stuff or skills. They were very practical. Things like, I don't know what to take, I always overpack, and simply, I don't know how to start. So this video is about just one thing, getting out the door and actually drawing. I'm going to be filming a 3-part series here on my YouTube channel about plein air, and this is video 1, how to start plein air without overpacking and overthinking. This one came up a lot. What should I bring? I always want to take everything. How do I know what I should use? The more options that you bring, the harder it is to start. It's kind of like decision fatigue. If we worry and think too much about what we should be using, we end up not using anything at all. So for me, a good plein air kit, or the stuff I take with me when I'm heading out and about, is about making those decisions in advance, not whilst you're there. Now, I don't have a set outdoors kit. I don't have a go bag that's always available with art supplies in when I want to make plein air. Because I'm a mixed media artist, I do also have a lot of options, and whether I'm in my studio or painting outside, my choices often depend on my mood. So in this video, I'll share what I take most of the time. This answers a bunch of your questions like what's in my travel kit, which sketchbook do I use, and what tools should I bring. Before I share my own kit, if you are starting out and heading out to create plein air for the first time, I'd honestly recommend going even simpler. So here's my recommendations for a starter pack, because all you need is a sketchbook and some coloured pencils. I recommend a light, a mid and a dark tone. Now of course it doesn't have to be coloured pencils, it could be a trio of brush pens, but keeping things simple and focusing on tone is a brilliant way to ease into plein air. We don't want complicated yet, and some of my favourite spreads in my recent plein air work was literally one brush pen and one fountain pen. So if you are into line work, a fountain pen and a mid to light tone brush pen works wonders. But let's also quickly touch on some practical items. Do I need an easel, a chair, a fancy pochade box? As a sketchbook artist, I also don't have an easel setup. I've seen amazing variations of this that you can find here on YouTube, but for me, I'm happy with my sketchbook on my lap or drawing standing up. What I do often take though is either a small camping chair or a blanket. Again, this depends on where I'm going. A lot of the time recently, especially in plein April and my new daily sketchbook, which I do have a video on, which I'll link in the cards and in the description box, I don't take these. I sit on a tree stump, or I find a bench, or I sit on the ground, and sometimes I draw standing up. But when I am on more of an adventure, or if it's been raining and the ground's going to be damp, I will take a blanket or a stool. It's obviously much more helpful to find a wall to lean on or a bench to sit on, but it's become a bit of a running joke that the areas with the best views will never have anywhere to sit. It's like they put benches in places that are designed to have a bad view. That's what me and Mitch have found anyway. So I have a blanket that I take that has a plastic backing, which means I can wipe it nice and clean and it doesn't pick up too much debris. And I know sitting on the floor isn't practical for everyone, especially if it's wet and muddy. So it can be a nice balance of a nice place to sit versus a perfect view. I'll talk more about that later because the joy of creating outside can be the challenges that you have to solve. The other option I have is a foldable camping stool. You can see it here, it comes with a handy case and folds down small so it's easy for me to carry. I have seen amazing collapsible stools that are cone shaped and kind of telescopic. They're super lightweight and they fold into a circular shape with its own carry handle. But this is what I have and I don't need another one, so I just have my little stool as an option. I am the first to admit that I am a fair weather plein air artist, but of course weather is a big factor. The changing light and weather are some of the biggest challenges as a plein air artist, but very fun for quick problem solving and is part of the joy of creating outside. But the best way to make art is to be comfortable. You can create from your car if it's easier, you can make art under a veranda or on the balcony of a cafe. You want to be able to settle in and focus on the art rather than feeling uncomfortable and unhappy. That's never going to lead to a nice result. Comfy clothes, a scarf, hat and gloves if it's cold out. Fingerless gloves are often recommended for colder days rather than full-on gloves or mittens, as it allows a bit more dexterity. Sitting in the bright sun makes things difficult too, not just the risks of sunburn and heat stroke, but it also means the way you view and see your colours are distorted because of the light. It's really quite difficult staring at a bright white page, so I recommend sitting in the shade if you can, or taking precautions for your health. Okay, so back to materials. What exactly do you take with you? As you get more confident, you can start taking more with you than the minimal kit that I suggested, perhaps more brush pens or dry media to play with. This is what I take with me when I'm just heading out on a short walk or somewhere local. A fountain pen in my bag alongside my mini sketchbook. Now I usually work in A5 sketchbooks, and I've definitely taken those out in the past, as well as my bigger Strathmore mixed media sketchbook, which is brilliant for wet media. But recently I've been loving this little A6 Hahnemuhle Nostalgia sketchbook because it does fit in my bag and I can take that wherever I go, even if I don't plan on drawing. It's quite handy to have something that is super portable, so even if you're not planning on drawing when you are out and about, it's there if you want to. A few of you asked, do I plan my materials based on where I'm going? And the answer is yes, but mostly based on colour and time. So like I mentioned just now, if I am spending more of a dedicated art session outside, rather than just a quick drawing, like a thing on the side of the path for example, then I will take a bigger kit. Mostly in plein air, I have been doing the more minimal stuff, but it does depend on the day and how much time I have. So my biggest tip is to focus on colour. I tend to know where I'm going when I paint plein air. I'll have a destination in mind. And this means I'll generally have an idea of the colours that I might find there. Greens, browns and neutrals for the forest, blues, turquoises and soft yellows for the beach, greys and browns and neutrals for a city scene. If you're unsure of what colours you'll find, Google Maps is your best friend. People often share photos in their reviews of a location, and that is an excellent starting point. It really helps you see the general colour palette that you might need. And of course you might not have a specific colour that you want when you get to where you're going. You may have packed a purple blue expecting to find bluebells, but instead you're surrounded by bright yellow gorse. In that case, it's time to get creative. We are artists after all. We don't have to respond to the landscape in the exact same way that we see it. We can have fun with changing up the colours. Maybe try a limited colour palette and take that with you. Don't feel hemmed in or limited by drawing exactly what you see. That is the beauty of an artistic license, and being out and about means we can change things to suit us. So that's how I do it. I know the general colour palette I might need, and now it's a case of what mediums do I take. I wish I had a set formula to give you here, but the truth is I do it based on feeling and vibes. That's the same as when I'm creating in the studio too. One day I'll want to be looser and perhaps more abstract, so I might want to work with ink. Or I might not want to carry lots of bottles with me if I know there's a bit of a walk ahead, so I'll take acrylic markers or brush pens or my watercolour palette. Sometimes I'll stick within my comfort zone and take my gouache, or if I want to be fast then I'll take my brush pens. It really does depend on my mood and lots of factors that are completely unique to all artists. But there are a few tools that I will take every single time, so here are my essentials and recommendations. Water brushes are brilliant. They've been a real game changer for plein air for me because I don't have to worry about taking a water bottle and a cup. It stays within the brush, so you can squeeze out the water into the bristles. My favourites are these by Derwent. They're the push-button water brushes that come in a set of 4 with various sizes, and my favourites are the larger 2. I take a few of these with me at a time so I can swap between them based on the colours that I'm using, and it stops getting the colours muddy. I tend to use that when I use watercolour, but another option which I tend to use for gouache and other mediums is a collapsible water pot. These are really easy to carry and don't take much space, and they are really lightweight. I have this Clic Go pot by Faber-Castell or this one by Hahnemuhle. With these you'll need to take water with you, so I take a water bottle for my clean water and then an empty bottle to pour the water I need to dispose the used paint water into. A tail of palette is an essential both for my studio work and plein air. I'll use these out and about for my palette, and usually by the time I'm finished painting it will be dry on the palette, so I can put it back in my bag, or I'll fold it up and take it back with me without worrying about any spills. Clips are a must for on location. I have these by Penco, but Bulldog clips work just fine, and sometimes I'll just grab these little binder clips. It doesn't matter what you use, but it is handy for plein air because of the wind to keep your paper in place. It stops my sketchbook pages from closing and flapping about when I create. Lastly, a cloth, rag or flannel for wiping your brushes. Someone also recommended a version that's like a sweatband, so a piece of toweling on elastic you can then just have on your wrist, which will make it so much easier and transportable. I want to make one myself, but I'm pretty sure you can buy them also, but it would definitely make painting standing up easier with one less thing in my hand. Okay, so a quick note on bags. This is why I needed to make this a 3-part series, because I have so much to share. So I have my yellow Fjolraven backpack, sorry I don't know how to pronounce that one, but I've had this for over a decade that I take with me on adventures and can fit lots in. But recently I've just been taking a tote bag with me and using that, Or when I am being really minimal, I'll take my A6 sketchbook, which I mentioned earlier, that fits into my Uniqlo shoulder bag with a couple of pens. Whatever bag you use, I do recommend a smaller pouch within it for your materials. My pencil roll is super handy for when I'm taking a lot of pencils and loose supplies. This one I made myself with some fabric scraps, but many brands have their own pencil rolls. And if you don't have one of those, pencil cases and small pouches are just fine. I use them often. One tip I do have is just that it can open quite wide. I find that really helpful when digging about looking for a specific colour or tool, because it just gives me a bit more space. So another question I saw was, there aren't any pretty places near me. And this one is a bit of a trap, because you're not looking for pretty. I think as artists we can find the most amazing things to draw in the most ugly places. Instead of looking for grand views or beautiful rolling hills and gorgeous scenery and perfect setups, you're looking for something that interests you. So I recommend looking smaller, zoom in. Perhaps it is the smallest pop of colour from a weed in the crack in the pavement. Maybe it's interesting light, the way the sunshine is marking the path through an unassuming wood. Cropping helps a lot. You can draw literally anywhere if you crop it properly, and I'll cover that in a little bit more detail in a future video. The other big question was just, I don't know where to start. So here is the simplest way to begin. I've shared the practical stuff and now we need to actually go out and start drawing. This is a mindset thing, so I want to encourage you to just go for it. Go out without the intention of creating good art. Just go outside with the intention of making some marks and doing it plein air. Scribble on your pages, lay down big shapes, and enjoy the fact that you are creating outside. You will learn so much by being in nature, the light changing constantly, the shadows that will fall, the animal or insects that you'll notice. And you can draw these on your page. Be open to the things you see and adjust your art to include them. Respond to what you are seeing and put it in your work. That's what makes it so special about creating plein air. I rarely love the art that I make when I'm outside. It's never quite the same as the stuff I make in the studio, but that is the beauty of it. I may not like the result, but I love the process. I find so much joy in creating outside, in being in the world and feeling connected to my art in a much stronger way than I do at home, because of that connection and my memories being much, much stronger. So in my third episode of this series, I will share some more methods and ideas for how to approach plein air scenes in terms of a practical painting sense. So if you have specific questions about that, then please do pop them in the comments below. But don't overthink creating outside. Go simple and just see what happens, because it really is so much fun. So in part 2, the next video in this mini-series, which will be out in a few weeks, I'm going to talk about the part that everyone struggles with, feeling awkward drawing outside. I'd originally planned on making one video, like the introvert's guide to plein air, because I totally get it. There are definitely ways we can make plein air feel better for us, particularly if we don't like people watching over our shoulder. But that really is a whole topic and video in itself, so hopefully you'll join me in my next one. I can't wait to chat to you all in the comments about it, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's encouraged you to give plein air a go, and I hope you have a creative week ahead. I will see you next Sunday in my new YouTube video. See you later. I feel like I'm on a place in the sun.